That's fine.
Okay, welcome, Theo.
Hi, nice to see you, Naftali.
Good to see you. What's going on? What are the big what are we at? Parshat Beshalach?
Yes. So I
Good,
had a couple of questions. Um,
good, good.
the first one doesn't really have to do with the Parsha. It's about Mashiach.
Okay.
So my understanding is that in the Talmud, there's a story that says that there will be two Mashiachs, one that will be accepted from the lineage of Joseph, and one that will no, one that will not be accepted from the lineage of Joseph, and one that will be accepted from the lineage of David. And what I want to know is how will we be able to tell them apart? And has one already come? And how will we know?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little bit from Tractate Sukkah, which is the best kind of, I don't want to say authentic source, but it is an authentic source to answer this question. Um,
Okay.
Everybody knows there's a Mashiach, widely understood to be a descendant of King David. What is less well known is the concept, the idea of a Mashiach descending from the tribe of Joseph or
Uh,
Ephraim, one of Joseph's sons. So in
right.
Sukkah 52a and b, I believe he mentions the Mashiach ben Joseph three times. That
And
is
when
by
when you
far,
wait, but when you say sukkah, this is a part of the Talmud that you're quoting
yeah,
from,
it's a
or
part of the
okay,
Talmud.
okay,
So let me take a look and see what it says.
okay,
Um, so the Gemara says, it's talking about some funeral that's going to happen, and there's a debate about exactly who the funeral is for. It says that there's going to be a great mourning, and the families are going to mourn independently. The families of the house of David on their own, the women on their own, and the Gemara is bringing that in for a specific reason. And the Gemara asks, what exactly is this eulogy? Who are we eulogizing? So Rabbi Dosa
okay,
debates the rabbis. One of them says it is Mashiach, the son of or descendant of Joseph, Mashiach ben Yosef, that got killed. And the other one says it's
okay,
going on the Yetzer Hara, because when the Mashiach will come, God will deal with the evil inclination that gets killed.
okay,
And the Gemara says it would make more sense on the one hand, from the context of the verses, to say it's actually Mashiach ben the son of a descendant of Joseph.
no,
So that's the first time we really find this mention in the Talmud of this Mashiach ben Joseph that I can recall in Tractate
okay,
Sukkah, and then he mentions him in the same page, like I said, two more times. So what we so far have established is that he's going to be killed. He's not going to actually. He's going to be mourned for, including by the house of David, who will recognize him and participate in mourning for him. So
right, okay,
then there's another mention on 52b, the second side of the same page, where it's quoting a verse in the prophets that talk about four potential players in the Mashiach's time. And one of them
okay,
is Mashiach ben David, and another one is Mashiach ben Joseph, the descendant of Joseph, and then Elijah the prophet. And the Kohen Tzedek, the righteous priest. So there's a verse that says, I believe it's in Zechariah, the second chapter of Zechariah, that says, V'yareini Hashem arba chashim. God showed me 4 craftsmen. And the Gemara says, who are the 4? So Reb Chana Bar Business says, in the name of Reb Shimon, Chasida, the first is Mashiach, the descendant of David. The second is Mashiach, the descendant of Joseph. The third is Elijah. The fourth is the Kohen Tzedek. The Gemara asks a question on that. The Gemara also says that I believe when Mashiach ben David sees what happens to Mashiach ben Joseph, he says, God, just let me live. I don't need to be a hero. I don't want to die either. So I again, that's a little bit of the Gemara about Mashiach, the descendant of Joseph. Very cryptic, very not clear exactly who he is and what he's going to do. I believe Reb Sadia Gaon, one of the Gaonim in the Gaonic period, approximately 1,000 years ago, says that he's going to be the one who will fight the battles, and that's why he's going to die, presumably in a battle within the Messianic continuum. He won't be able to finish the battle, but he'll lay the groundwork. Or maybe he will finish the battle, but he won't be able to actually be the Mashiach, and he'll lay the groundwork for the actual Mashiach ben David. Other people say he's actually going to be a builder, like the section there says a craftsman. So he'll be one of the builders that build the temple. And the third opinion is that we don't really know who he'll be or what he'll do, and if he'll even come in a revealed way. Meaning it's a potential part of the story. It's not. Maimonides, for example, does not mention his existence. Maimonides is and Maimonides has in the Mishnah Torah, the last section of the Mishnah Torah is dedicated to what will happen in the coming of the Mashiach. The reason why he wouldn't mention him is he's not significant a player to say this is going to happen because maybe it won't happen. It's not important, so to speak, according to Maimonides. Others would disagree and say it is important. And yet a third opinion is it may or may not be important. We don't know. He's very, very. There's no real mention of him in the biblical literature. I mean, it's Talmudic interpretation of biblical literature. It's not actual. Like you can't say here, and the Torah is clearly talking about Mashiach ben Joseph. Yet, if you read the book of Genesis carefully, all of the visions of Joseph, so to speak, and the blessings of Joseph that Jacob gives him have a little bit of a messianic undertone. And the question only really is it just messianic for that generation or the next generation, or is it messianic for the final redemption as well? So the rabbis learned that it is messianic, not just for that time, but even beyond then, but not the same, not the equivalent of Mashiach ben David. And they also kind of reconcile. There are verses that talk about a reconciliation between the house of David, the descendants of Judah, which the house of David is from, and the house of Joseph and Ephraim and Manasseh. Like a reconciliation of the fights, the infighting between the tribes. So let's wait and see.
Yeah. Are they going to happen close together? Like, would it be, like a few years apart if there were to be two, or would it be, hundreds of years apart? Or
I don't think we know. Presumably, if the house of David will mourn for the for the death of the Mashiach ben Joseph, presumably that means there's some proximity, or else why would it
Okay.
mention the house of David? As if they're in a
Okay.
relationship with each other, whether that's on a time frame that they knew each other while they were living, or they're in or some other thing. I don't know.
Okay. And so it's not something that's happened already, right? Like one of the Mashiachs has not happened
It,
already.
again, there's a whole question. I don't want to get messianic here. So there's this
Okay.
thing called the War of Gog and Magog, which the prophets talk about, this great war that
Right.
the world commonly refers to as Armageddon, that's going to
Right.
happen in the beginning of messianic times, or a prelude to the messianic times. Question is, that may
Okay.
already have happened. That might have been the Holocaust. That might have been, in
Okay.
other words, we don't need a new one to happen. When we say proximity, history, what proximity
Right.
means is not really clear. So the
Right.
War of Gog and Magog may have already happened, or maybe one of many things that is happening, already happened, and we don't really know what it is till
Right.
the rear view mirror, till somebody till Mashiach will come and say, this is all the prophecies that are being fulfilled. That's why when we talk about any of these things, it's very speculative. We don't really know what's going to happen till it actually happens.
Right. Okay.
So
All
could
right.
it have happened already? It could have, yes.
Okay. And how will we be able to tell who is the Mashiach, or who is the, who's been Yosef and who's been David?
You know, that's a good question, because let's take, for example, Mashiach ben David, which there's really no need to identify who Mashiach ben Yosef is, other than,
Okay.
he's a leader. He may lead people to defend the Jewish people. He may help rebuild the temple. So it is possible. So,
Right.
for example, if you have somebody claiming that they want to rebuild the temple today, your first thought is going to be, who are they? What are their credentials?
Right.
What's their level
Uh-huh.
of righteousness? And what time are we living in? Like, it, are we just needlessly making World War III for some egomaniac, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So you have to ask all of those questions before you follow someone blindly into whatever the project, however nice the project sounds. You have to make all of these, like, judgment calls, because there have been plenty of false messiahs. There's no shortage of false messiahs, or even well-intentioned messianic people who wanted to bring the Mashiach, thought they could be. One explanation is that there are potential Mashiachs in different times in history, and they tried and they failed. It may or may not be their shortcoming. It may just be the time wasn't ready for it. Now let's talk about the actual Mashiach, Mashiach ben David. Um,
Okay.
Rambam basically says it's a leader, it's a Jewish leader who's both like a political leader and also a spiritual leader. So he's going to galvanize and motivate Jewish people to return to Jewish practice. He's going to inaugurate a Jewish state. That's why some people call the Jewish state Reshit Tzmichat Gulotenu. They refer to it as the beginning of the salvation, like growing forward as a necessary step in the coming of the Mashiach. It doesn't mean Mashiach actually came, but it's like a step because of the sovereignty of having a Jewish state. Obviously, that is
Right.
not universal. Many Orthodox Jews do not accept that. That's why there are many Orthodox Jews who may or may not be for or against the state of Israel per se, but they're not
Right.
necessarily seeing it as the beginning of the flourishing of redemption. Other Orthodox Jews do see it as such. So that's a debate within the Jewish world right now, how to view
Right.
Messianism and modern day Zionism. How linked or connected should they be, or not at all? The bottom line is,
Right.
Mashiach did not come yet, but we do have a state. So where do you go from there? We don't just we need leadership, and the leadership has to be believable. Like somebody who could really be a Mashiach means there's a leader that will inspire Jewish people, and
Right.
that's why people thought, oh, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was Mashiach because he inspired a lot of people. The only thing is he didn't
Right.
finish. In order for him to be Mashiach, I mean, some people will disagree with me because they'll say Mashiach can be dead because the Talmud talks about if Mashiach is in the living versus if Mashiach is somebody who died already. But that's a figurative,
Right.
that was not accepted in normal Jewish law. Normal Jewish law is the codification of Maimonides when it comes to the Mashiach, because he's the main codifier, and no one else really treats Mashiach significantly in a halachic framework like Maimonides does. Other people talk about
Right.
it, but he's the most significant. And he says Mashiach has to be alive, and he has to do the following things. He has to bring back the people to Israel. He has to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. He probably has to get rid of Amalek. He probably has about a lot of different things that he has to do. And
Okay.
and once he does those things and he establishes a Jewish religious way of life with Mashiach, with the Beis Hamikdash, then we'll know he is Mashiach. He doesn't have to make
Okay.
miracles, according to Maimonides. He just has to do a bigger thing than make a miracle, which is get the Jewish people to live to embrace Judaism.
So, but isn't it also that like the the Mashiach will come and will the temple will be built or something like that will happen, and that will cause world peace or something like that? Is that right?
Oh yeah. Yes, I forgot to mention that. World peace as well.
So, but it seems like you could argue that if one came today and built the temple, you would not exactly have world peace.
Correct. Correct. That's why I said if somebody says, let's rebuild the temple, and the guy's a troublemaker and wants a World War III, I don't know that that's the guy who's really bringing in who's Mashiach, or even forget about Mashiach, even Mashiach ben Joseph.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
But to make peace,
it
sometimes you have to be willing to fight for peace, right? We know that you can't. Peace
right.
isn't always made by weaklings. Peace through strength.
So,
Sometimes
but
people have to be powerful in order to ensure that peace is made.
right. But when you say the rebuilding of the temple, does it actually have to be the rebuilding of the temple, or like a something like does it actually have to be a physical structure on that space, or could it be a time and a kind of feeling and everybody getting along
No,
in a better way?
no.
No.
It's got.
So it has
I mean,
the physical
it's got
building.
to be something. The temple is considered a significant part of it. Once we start modifying it to say, or maybe it's a feeling like we'll give everyone a certain drug and they'll momentarily feel like we're at peace with the world, and now it's a Mashiach moment.
Okay.
No, that's not enough. No, because if
Okay.
you can't have the worship of God, so to speak, if it's just about I don't know what, something else, we'll
Right.
switch it out for this, we'll switch it out for that. Um, you know,
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That's
I mean, there
interesting.
may be ways of making the temple, in a peaceful way, but that's not that's beyond the scope of today's conversation.
Right. Okay.
Any other
But it has
questions?
to, but ultimately the building of the if the temple is built in the right way, it brings world peace, right? That's part of the prophecy.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
If it doesn't, then
That
that's
is not
not
right.
what Mashiach is as well either.
Okay. All
Just
right.
having
Great.
a
All
third
right.
temple and the world continuing as it is, at least that's not the Mashiach that we've been, taught to believe in.
Right. And probably we wouldn't want that Mashiach. That sounds right. All right. So the question number two: why does God want the Egyptians to believe in Him?
Mm,
Parsha
maybe it's
talks about
connected.
wanting to have. Uh-huh. Maybe it's what? I'm sorry.
Maybe it's connected to Mashiach.
Ah, maybe.
I mean,
So you think?
Explain your question more.
So I mean, like, God has made it difficult for, like, I mean, according to the Parsha and the last couple of Parshas, it says that God has hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's made it hard
Mm,
for him to believe.
mhm, mm.
And that, but when we finally are going out and going through the sea of reeds and the water is split, and he wants in that moment, or it says in the text that, or at least my understanding is that it says in the text that he wants God to not that God wants Pharaoh and the Egyptians to believe in God, or to believe in our God. Um,
Yeah.
so, but I don't understand. Like, if God is making it hard for Pharaoh to believe, like, you
God
know,
isn't making it hard. No, no,
that,
actually, if you read the text carefully, he's not
okay,
making it hard to believe for Pharaoh. On the contrary, he's saying, I want Pharaoh to believe in me. And the way Pharaoh will come to believe in me is if I make more miracles. If Pharaoh acquiesces right away and just let the Jews go, it's just going to be because he was afraid of the physical consequences. It's not going to be because he believes in God. Pharaoh
oh,
didn't believe in God in the beginning, and only at the end, according to some readings, he came to know that God is ultimately the ruler of the world. So the answer is
right,
that um, the Bible is interested in Pharaoh and Egypt realizing and recognizing that there is a God. And there's different names of God, which means they might have believed in the God of power, meaning they were into power, so they could understand you have a God that has power,
right,
but they didn't really believe in God above power, which means they
okay,
believed like God was part of the power structure. So, for example, Machiavelli believed in God if it helped a ruler be a ruthless ruler and control
right,
his subjects, right? Or
right,
Marx believes that religion is the opiate of the masses. In other words, maybe some
right,
cynical religious rulers are also believing that religion is used for their own benefit and not truly a path to something that transcends them. So part of the
right,
story is Pharaoh realizing God isn't just another manipulative trick. That already he knows. He's the best of them at
right,
manipulating the gods to
uh,
do his bidding to get the control of the people.
right,
Now it's
okay,
about teaching him that there's a God that's above, that he can control, that controls him, not just because God is all powerful, that too, but also
right,
because God is the most real thing at the core of existence and worth worshiping, not because of what else it gives you, like the power that Pharaoh is seeking, but because of the
right,
truth. And that's
right.
what is kind of happening slowly through the breakdown of Egypt, through the plagues, and through the whole story of the Exodus.
I see. And the real problem with Egypt is that with each plague, Pharaoh's not really believing. It's just fear. So it's not real faith, or kind of changing his mind.
He's slowly believing, but it's a very slow process. He's very stuck in being Pharaoh. He's a very
Okay.
deep rooted. It's like when you meet someone who's like a true narcissist, and like you just
Right.
can't really change. The narcissism is so deep; it's who they are that it's almost impossible to get them to see something from another perspective, or definitely a psychopath or something like that, whose whose worldview is just different than you and mine. It's like Pharaoh was that. He was a narcissistic psychopath that,
Right.
to break through somebody like Pharaoh, you got to do a lot of breaking to break through.
Right. That makes
And, and
sense.
and that's a metaphor, by the way, for the idea of the Exodus from Egypt is a metaphor for breaking through out of your own restrictions and addictions and limits. Besides for the ones that are imposed on us by society, our own emotional makeup and the challenges that are inherent in who we are, we need to find a way, a path to freedom to really
Right.
express why we're put in this world to do our true mission in this world, and not to get delayed and confused by the variety of other things that interfere with what's important in our lives.
Wait, when you say it's a metaphor, you're saying that like when something difficult comes along, and we're afraid or we're distracted or having difficulty, that it's also an opportunity to believe. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Meaning when we're up against something that we're battling, instead of just saying
Mm-hmm.
it's hopeless, we should be saying that God was able to take us out of Egypt, which was miraculous on many levels.
Yeah, of course.
And just like a slave who's is controlled by other people and sees no hope and no ability to free himself, God was able to interfere and go up against Pharaoh and destroy Pharaoh essentially and teach Pharaoh a lesson. We should believe that that having God in our life will allow us to fight against the injustices of the world, but more than just the injustices of the world, will enable us to overcome our own areas and our own vulnerabilities and weaknesses that we constantly set ourselves up for failure because we don't want to do the extra effort to do the thing that we really can and should do.
Right. Okay. I love that. All right. So my next question is, why is the story of Nachshon not in the Torah? The story of the guy who goes into the sea even after Moses has waved his cane and or his staff to make the sea split, and it doesn't split, and it only splits when he goes in. But the Torah is not in the story is not in the Torah. It's in the Talmud, I guess, or somewhere else. I don't know, but
Great question, Theo. That's a brilliant question. So the question is, there's a whole midrashic literature that's not mentioned in the Bible itself, where Nachshon goes up into the water up to his nose, and then the sea splits. So the Torah only mentions God telling Moses to put his staff over the water, and the water will split. So why is this midrashic teaching not in the Chumash itself? And then that's a great question in general. Why are there these midrashic teachings that are, from 1700 years ago or 18 or 1900 years ago, but definitely not in writing for them? They're not in writing in the biblical period. Why were they not in writing in
right,
the biblical period? So nobody in the rabbinic tradition, the way we understand Judaism, believes that the Tanakh, the biblical canon, is the complete story. We always believe that there's things that happen that were not written down, and we call that, for simplicity's sake, the Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral Torah, the traditions that were handed down from generation to generation. There were other, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I don't think they believed in the rabbinic tradition. They believed that the biblical tradition should continue and that people should still continue to write in the biblical style, even after the
ah,
biblical works were kind of canonized. So they kept writing in the biblical style, and that's why the
wow,
rabbi said, "No more writing. We're going to call it the Torah Shabbal Peh." For many hundreds of years, they memorized tens of thousands of Talmudic statements because they didn't want to write it down to distinguish themselves in part from the
ah,
biblical period and the Dead Sea Scroll authors who just kept writing. Like we have
right,
150 chapters of Psalms. They have 2,000 and a few hundred chapters of Psalms because they just kept writing
wow,
Psalms. They didn't feel like the need to finish, like it's finished. So,
wow,
um, so the Medrash is, on the one hand, filling in what happened. We believe it was somehow passed down. On the other hand, it's like also moral clarity. The stories are about us, like who we need to be. So Nachshon is an example of like, here's the guy. He's not Moses. He's not Aaron. He's not Joshua. He's just a guy. He starts out as just a guy, but he becomes Nachshon. He becomes a hero because he's willing to go in and risk his everything to
His
go
life.
into the ocean. So when we talk about a Nachshon today, it represents somebody who's very strong, who goes against the odds, who goes against his fear or her fear, and goes into a difficult situation, a very challenging situation, but with a certain like faith that things are going to work out. So it's a example of somebody we want to be like and embody. So that's something for Medrash in
Oh,
general. Look at the Medrash, study it, and ask, who of my friends are like Nachshon? Who, if I'm in a bar with, will be the Nachshon that won't back down if somebody starts up with us? Who's the guy who's not going to cower and all of a sudden disappear?
right,
Whether it's in friendship or in dedication to Torah.
right. So, but does the story of Nachshon appear like in the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, or just the Dead Sea Scrolls are different than the Torah itself?
I'm not an expert of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I know a little bit about it, but not enough to tell you whether Nachshon appears or not. You know, I don't.
But
I don't recall.
why would okay, and why did the rabbis like this idea that like that it's not just a miracle and Moses waves his staff and then the water splits? Why do the rabbis like this idea that that it has to be it has to be somebody who just kind of has complete faith before it happens at all? It's
Well,
not
they like
it
the idea. It's a great
Moses,
question. They like that idea so much that there's another medrash that says Nashon was just the first, but every Jew who went in, we don't call them Jews yet; they're just Israelites, right? They're the sons of Jacob, the son
right?
who's known as Israel, Bnei Israel.
Right.
Every Jew had to go into the water, would go up to their chest, go up to their neck, and then right before it got to their mouth or their nose,
Right.
that's when it would split. Meaning that
Okay.
we all had to take a leap of faith. Do you remember taking swimming lessons?
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you swam where you've never swum before, and the teacher said, "Well, you're just gonna like swim. So this is
Yeah.
how you do it, and you're just gonna like you're gonna let go, and you're gonna swim to me."
Yeah. It was
Remember
terrifying.
that?
Yes.
There's a moment where like I don't know if I'm gonna actually swim, and thank God you swam and you're still here, right?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have swam, the teacher would have gotten you out of the water. So on a much bigger level, we knew the guy in front of us went into the water and it split for them, but it's going to split for me. Maybe I'm not. Maybe not. Maybe not for me. So you had to go in, you experience the fear, and have faith and go in. So that represents that it's not enough for Mo to have a lead. We all want leaders to like split the sea for us. No, the leader will split the sea for us, and then I have to go in and make my own sacrifice. And
Okay.
Nachshon was the first one who did it. So it's
Okay.
not just leadership. A leader without a follower is not a leader. So
Okay.
you have a follower is just as important as a leader. And it's not even, and at some point, it's not even about who's leading and who's following. It's just about doing what needs to be done, even at the risk of your own life, if that's really what you need to do in that
Right.
moment. And that's what Nachshon
Right.
represents.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. All right. And so, so my next question is, why does God portray us in the desert as always complaining? Because surely we're not always complaining. What is the value of this from like a literary perspective of like, we're always complaining about something.
Probably helping us in our marriages. Like if you think, oh, my spouse is always complaining, well, look at the Jews. God, he wasn't happy with us, but he spent 40 years with us in the desert and so on. But all kidding aside, we weren't always complaining. We complained 10 times of significance. So 10 times in 40 years, that's pretty good. but we did complain
Okay, but the
10
Torah doesn't.
times.
But the Torah doesn't say like, oh, and everybody was happy or everybody went along in a good way, or it's always like, oh, they're complaining about water or food or I don't know. It's
We don't talk about the good. We focus on
right.
the 3 of the 10 times are in the Parsha of Beshalach, so that's why it just feels like there's a lot of
Okay.
that. So there
Okay.
are parshiot which are very heavy with the complaining, and this
Yeah.
is one of them. Especially
Okay.
after being freed from Egypt, wanting to go back, having the sea split, and again complaining when we didn't have food and water, wanting to go back. It seems like being ungrateful. So
Right.
the answer is practice gratitude, because I
Uh-huh.
I am I am guilty of complaining and then not telling the people that I complain about when I don't like something that I do appreciate
Right.
when they do things right. So you raise a valid point, Theo.
All right. Yeah, I mean that seems like something I definitely could learn from that too, like to not complain and to be more grateful for sure. All right. And my final question is it talks about the Ark of Testimony. There's no Mishkan yet, and there's no Ten Commandments yet, but they talk about doing a sacrifice at the end of the Parsha in front of the Ark of Testimony. So what is that?
Um, you know, I think Rashi says that it's going on the future. Like because
Okay.
it mentions the taking of the manna and putting it in like a canister and putting it in the ark, even though there was
Yes.
no ark yet. But Rashi says that's like the Torah knows, God knows what's well aware of what's about to happen, and it's
Okay.
like planning.
Okay. So
So
the
they
Torah
they
is about the,
also they also did have the capacity to make offerings at different times in history without actually having the tabernacle. That's another conversation about a bama, which is like a place where they would bring offerings that were, for the most part, forbidden for most of Jewish history, but there were some moments where that was allowed. But I believe
oh,
the ark that it describes is talking about the ark that would be in the in the tabernacle once they built it. There are other opinions that might say they had a temporary ark, but Rashi is the major opinion here. Says it's and I think some people talk about the ark that went out in front of. It seemed to be that they had a special ark that would go in front of them when they went to battle, not necessarily the same ark that they would keep in the Mishkan. The most
I see.
famous ark
But
is the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
right,
Remember the movie?
but
Indiana
it never
Jones.
right, yes. But it never says like that we're supposed to build an ark until there's a Mishkan, and then it says to build it and tells us exactly how to build it.
Correct. So it would be like me saying, um, right, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow, but in the meantime, put in your head, we're going to talk about, the New York Yankees.
Okay.
You,
All right.
you know, you don't
Uh,
have to have everything down in its place. You could have something that comes before. It's foreshadowing what will be there because they know it's going to be there.
okay. So what does Rashi think was in the ark? Like, was the ark empty? Did it
No,
have a ten in it?
Rashi
Torah in it?
thinks that we'll get to the ark in a couple weeks from now, but the ark has just briefly, it had the luchot, it had the 10 Commandments in it.
Wait, the Ark of Testimony already has the Ten Commandments in it?
No, not already. It
Oh,
doesn't have right now. It doesn't even exist. But the
right.
ark would ultimately have, I believe, like if you talked about the ark in the time of the temple, It would have a very, very
Right.
small copy of a Torah in it, right? But in the time
Okay.
of the um, but anyway, right now we're not yet holding by the Ark. It was just mentioned, but there's no Ark yet, according to Rashi. We're just mentioning the future Ark. There's nothing in it. They would put right now. It's just saying
But
we will put some of this in the Ark when we build it. The mana, a
okay.
little bit of mana.
So it's like a metaphor. There will be an ark at some point, and at that
Yeah.
point,
I mean, it's not a metaphor. It's just a plan for the future. It's like
okay.
when we have an
All
Ark, we'll
right.
put this in it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I
All
mean,
right.
it's not
Great.
that distant. It's not like 20 years or 2,000 years. We're talking about,
Right.
you know, talking about a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So not a problem. I don't see that as a problem.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Naftali. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Thea. Always a pleasure.
Thank
It's always a
you.
lot of fun.
All right. Well,